Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Lost Coast podcast. Today, we got a special guest with us. Her name is Mary Lynn Clogsey. Oops, did I say that right? I think I did, right?
Clogacy, pretty close.
Clogsey, yeah, Clogsey. And she's the founder of Leadership Literary Lab.
Correct.
So I want to welcome her to the show. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you.
Now, Mary, writing is kind of your specialty, and helping others also get the word out and showing them how writing can change a lot of different aspects in their lives, really. Why don't you give us a little bit of idea how you got started in this?
So I started writing when I was a kid. My mom used to say that I used to think funny, actually. And so I basically started penning stories as a child. Now, professionally, I didn't start writing until I was probably in my 40s. I had a longer career in corporate communications, and so I was a ghostwriter and an editor for many years. And creative writing was my first love. I did do a lot of that in college, but when I circled back at the end of my 40s to figure out the next steps of my career and what I wanted to do, that's when I started to spend more time. I took a professional program called Creative Work, and that was a number of artists that of different disciplines, actually, some of which were writers, but not all, that wanted to get together and to sort of envision how they could professionalize their practices. And that really launched me into doing a couple of master's degrees, actually, and then onwards to the literary lab. So that's sort of the history in a nutshell.
I always wondered when people use the word ghostwriter, tell the listeners here exactly what that means. When people hear that, I think they have a misconception. What is a true ghostwriter?
So a ghostwriter is somebody that actually pens the narrative on behalf of somebody else. So that can take the form of interviewing that individual, then writing transcripts and then editing those transcripts. Or you can take their notes and their rough copy and you can do some research and doctor it up. You can add a different type of narrative voice to it. But basically, you're the one that's writing the work versus editing somebody else's writing on behalf of another individual.
So kind of like if you were to do a book about somebody like some congressman or something, since political times right now, right?
Yeah,
They
sure.
would have you'd get the notes and stuff like that, and you would write it kind of on their behalf on like a biography or some sorts.
Yeah, so they would have a theme or an idea that they would want to explore. They'd want to present that. Oftentimes, when I was ghostwriting in the past, I would do it for executives in oil and gas, mining, and technology, because the company that I had was a corporate communications business. So they were busy gentlemen and ladies, actually. And so they didn't really have time to sit and pen their narrative. So I would get bits and pieces here and there, and I'd pull their stories together. The same process applies for a book. So if you're going to write on behalf of somebody else, you'll need to get to know them, understand their vision, what they're looking for, the kind of tone and relationship they want to have with the audience, what the ideal outcome is for the reader and for their platform, whatever that may be. So in the case of a politician, it may be to hone in on a certain ideology or a certain movement within politics. And you'd basically help them sort of realize that in the written word.
Now that's not what you're doing today, really, though. You're teaching other people today, correct?
Yeah, so the Leadership Literary Lab, it's a program that I designed for experts in their fields. And so I don't ghostwrite for them, but there's a 4-phase program where I can take them from A to Z. So if you had a project in mind and you didn't know where to start, so a lot of times I hear from thought leaders that they're overwhelmed or they have this great idea, but they need a step-by-step process to make that a reality and to sort of help them get past the procrastination and or any fears that they have that they might not finish. So with that, the literary lab sort of takes them again through 4 phases, starting with it's right here beside me, preparation, and then pre-writing. I can tell you more about these, and then the production is the actual writing, and then I offer some advice on publishing.
Okay, so you're hands on with whoever it is you're working with, then whatever stage they're
Yes.
at, whatever spot,
Yeah.
whatever they need. Have you ran into, well, gee, Mary, I can just go into AI now and I just tell them what I want and they print me out this book, right? How do you address that? Because I mean, I would have to assume AI is missing that personal touch on really what they're trying to get across.
So I liken it to auto-tracked tunes of that are kind of repeats or reimagined versions of what the original artists did. So if you heard an auto-tracked version of some song, this has been top of mind for me because I was in Europe and there was a lot of auto-tracked versions in Europe that I was listening to, versus the original song where you get the finesse of the voice and you get the emotion of the moment and you get the history of it, you get the quality of the artistry that that person brings to it. There's a very different experience in both of those things. And so the Leadership Literary Lab is really about helping people who do have a story to tell or a vision for the future, or they want to sort of offer something to the new generation, whether that's an artist or a doctor or whomever, a businessman, a politician. So I help them find that voice and to hone that in. And so to address your point of AI, yes, there are apps that you can actually plug your name in and give them a subject matter and say, I want X many chapters, and they'll write it for you. So what I tell the individuals that come to me with these concerns is that that will never supersede somebody who is truly a thought leader, because it's only derivative. It only works on what exists in the current marketplace today. So if we do our job properly and use, and there's pieces to it that are outside my purview. So that's the author's platform and the world of publishing. And I do have expertise in that, and I can help mentor my clients. But I don't think that there's a risk of their voices being lost in the melee. But I do think that AI is challenging the ability of these authors to rise to the top and to be heard. So it's something that we can't put back in the box. It's certainly a concern. But I do think there'll always be a place for thought leaders and for true literature, like the well thought, well constructed book.
Yeah, and that's how I understand it. AI can't make things up. It can only take whatever information it can find. Being right or wrong too, it doesn't
That's right.
know really.
Yeah.
So it could write something in there that you don't even really believe in or feel is correct. If they're writing something and if you're not proofreading it all, then you could really kind of have some egg on your face at the end of the day if that's how you just wanted one out there quickly. Or so.
Right. Exactly. You know, you really have to, one of the things that I start with my authors on is what's your big picture? Like, what do you want out of this? Because they can see that, you know, when you have a vision for the future, you realize it's an investment to get there. It's an investment of time and money and effort, right? And taking that time and money and effort, you know, we all have these resources available to us. It's like, where do you want to spend that? Right? How do you want to spend your time? How do you want to spend your money? What legacy do you want to leave? So for people, I talk with them about what their big picture is. And some people decide it's not for them, honestly. They decide, you know, this was a great idea, but I don't really have 9 to 12 months in me to do this right now. So I'll put that on the back burner. But I really vet that up front to make sure that people are committed to their projects and their vision and they have a clear idea of where they're going.
So on that note, that's exactly where I wanted to head with this. So it starts with somebody and they think they want to work with you and go through this process. There's an interview process to make sure everybody's on the same page. And so know what direction you're heading. So there can be a proper game plan based on it. Give us a little idea on somebody that you vetted it in and they look like they're a good candidate and you start the process. Give us a little idea what the process is from A to Z there.
Sure. So I'll tell you about the 4 phases because that involves the vetting and then the process. So the vetting is, we talk about the big picture. I'll offer like a free 30-minute consultation to anybody who gives me a call. Happy to sit and chat about books any time of the day, or any day of the week, not any time of the day. Let me clarify that. And then when we talk, I kind of evaluate, you know, where does this book sit in the overall scheme of publishing? So for example, some people, I had a woman that came to me that wanted to write a memoir. And she originally had these dreams of like publishing, bringing this to market. And I know that in memoirs, if you're not a subject matter expert, and she wasn't in this particular matter, they're really very much a personal passion project. And so I wanted to steer her towards a more, let's call it intimate narrative for her family. And she found satisfaction in that because she realized that the chances of her getting published in a commercial contract, given that she wasn't a subject matter expert, wasn't going to happen. So the vetting project is, part of the project is very much about setting expectations and understanding who that person is and helping set them up for success, right? Like if I had said, yes, let's run with this and let's take this to a host of agents, and knowing that her chances were really slim, I don't think that would make me a very good book coach. So I'm very honest with people, and I really take a good hard look at what I think they can bring to the table and what their best pathway is, whether that's for writing or publishing or how this book fits in the market as well. So we start off on the right foot, basically, with the vetting prospect and the project, and that's really important to me.
Awesome. So, okay, that's the vetting process. Now you're going to go through what's the next step though? What happens there during the writing and everything else? You know, what's the process there on how you're pulling the information from them, getting all this,
Sure.
and then getting it basically from pen to paper, right? The pen is mightier than the
For
sword.
sure. Absolutely. I love that. So it really starts with setting up systems, because I want to set you up for success. So authors are very often surprised, because a lot of these online programs that are very quick and easy, they'll start with an outline. I'm like, that is 2 phases down the road. We're going to get there. We'll get to the manuscript. But I liken it to an individual coming into the gym for the first time, putting on their runners and saying, hey, I want to go for a run. You don't send them out to do a marathon, right? You train them. So I train them to do free writing. I train them to set up a system of accountability, and then prototype that system to make sure that they can meet those expectations. And then we set a series of expectations. And then once we have a track record of success and that starts to become habituated, then we start to dive into the manuscript. So it's building small habits along the way and having these quick wins along the way that then sets them up for success, right? So there's a whole process involved in that. The next part of the process is I call pre-writing. So an outline is the end of that. But before we get to that, we need to do something called spade work. So that's saying, what's really important here? What's your theme? What is in it for the reader with this? I know you have a vision, but if you're going to put this in the public marketplace, how are you transforming the reader? Why would they pick this book up? And then once we have their themes, we figure out the tenets and timelines. So what are the tenets of these arguments? What kind of supports do you need? Are you supporting this with anecdotal evidence? So stories from, say, a career that illustrate your point? Or are you looking at research? Are we looking at a timeline where we need to access permissions? Are you going to interview other people? So there's a lot of parts and pieces that go into thinking about a book project. And I tend to tell people to use the visualization of a house, because everybody knows what a house is, right? So your theme is your foundation. The tenants and timelines are the rooms. And all of the different aspects that play into how you make this narrative jump off the page is all of the ways in which you decorate this room. But everything needs to fit inside that one house. It has to be consistent, and you have to feel the coherent whole so that you can move seamlessly between those rooms, right? So when you think of these things, then we'll build in rhetorical strategies. And by the end of the second phase, we'll have a very detailed outline with all the strategies in place that you need to be able to make this book a success and to read well and to be very well structured. Then the production phase is the third, and that's the writing. Now, when people write, there's optional services where they can work with me to do the hands-on editing and to do some ghostwriting. I limit that quite severely, but I'll do quite a bit of editing, including developmental editing. So I'll give them a feel for how I think they're doing as they go along, if they need to pivot so they don't end up at the end of a manuscript and then have to backtrack, right? And then the final phase is, once you have that manuscript in hand, that's really only the beginning process in some ways, because you have to edit it. And then you'll have to figure out which publishing pathway you want. If you want to be an author, you're going to have to establish an author's platform. You're going to need a promotional plan. You're going to have to understand book launch. So all of these things are covered in the various phases of the program. And I should mention that in the writing phase, as the individual is writing, I do offer craft advice. And that's one of the things that makes me different, is that there's a lot of marketers that offer book projects and programs, quick courses that you can do in 30 days or less. I don't do that. My program is about 9 to 12 months because you're going to need that time. You can go through the materials in 3 months, but you're going to need that time to write. And so with the craft-based materials, I offer advice on the do's and don'ts of the technical side of writing. So coherence, clarity, voice, the different aspects that come into syntax or grammar, common errors. So that's sort of the broad brushes of the program.
Oh, no, that's excellent. I mean, I could never thought about there being so many different aspects and getting to the point of starting to write the book, actually, you know, then after you write the book, all the other stuff that happens at the end, you know, like that's just amazing to me. But it makes sense when you mention the house. I mean, when you start thinking about building a house, you got to design what do you want to look like. You got to pick up a piece of property you want to put it on. I mean, there's a
Yep.
whole bunch of stuff that picks up before you
Right.
even buy the first board to build a house, right? And this is
Right.
exactly what you're saying, is that you help them design everything so you can actually have the material to build the house.
Right. And what that does is it fast tracks the writing, because the reason most people fall off in the writing is they don't have a focal point. They don't understand their themes. There's certain common errors that are made. And if you don't do the preparation, chances are you're not habituated to the writing process. So, for example, for me, I'm a fiction writer as well, and I am so strongly habituated to the process of writing. So when I sit down in my office for the first 2 hours of the day, that is all I do. And it feels very strange when I'm traveling or when I'm not able to sit down in the office, because it's become something that I've paired with other habits, right? So you have people like James Clear that have talked about atomic habits, and other people in the business world that talk about how you become efficient. But I do know that preparing yourself properly and habituating yourself to writing and reading actually are two of the primary parts of being successful as a writer, to set yourself up for success as a writer.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving pieces there. So give us an example of someone that you've worked with that maybe we know them, maybe some of the listeners know them or something, but I mean, just an example of somebody that you've taken through the process so they can kind of see, you know, start to finish. So proof in the pudding per se.
Yeah, for sure. So I have an author named Amy Schembri, and she is a mother of three soccer players and a family member of elite soccer players in Australia. So she came to me saying she had this book in mind about telling these young players the real truth about what it means to make it in the world of professional football or soccer. Because her family has been involved in that. And the kind of dedication and the sacrifices, what you see in media of these Ferraris and the grand parties and the glamorous lifestyle, that's not what it's all about. And that's certainly not what it's about when they're on the way to getting there. There's a lot of sacrifices. There's a lot of different pathways to take. And so her book is called Making It or Not, the real journey told, pardon me, the real journey told by professional players. And so she's divided the book into 4 parts, and this is where rhetorical strategies come in. She talks about the younger days where there's this fond memories for these players of them just playing with their kids and friends in the neighborhood and becoming a part of something that was bigger than them and exploring what it meant to be, on the field and figuring out that they had some capability, to the next stages where as young as 8, they're being eliminated from higher level teams. And how do you prepare these players to be at that young age, and prepare the parents to help those players to be able to manage that emotional sort of delisted from a team or something of that nature. So this book takes them all the way through the journey of 7 different professional players, all of whom comment on these different phases of the journey, what it took for them to go pro, how they sacrificed, and then what's life is like after going pro. And then it actually has a part in there where a psychologist is offering advice to the parents of the kids. So it's a really timely book. There's nothing like it in the market. She actually has interest from Football Australia, which is the governing body, the national body of sport that governs soccer, to help promote this book and to help bring it to the market. She doesn't have a sponsorship deal with them. I'm going to be very clear about that, but they have expressed an interest in the book, and the community is very much welcoming her. And this is a rare achievement. So one of the things that I would like to pat her on the back for, because she's worked really hard on this book, is she's achieved a traditional contract, which is very rare for a first-time author. So this book is being completely and imprinted by an imprint, which is a part of a publishing division that offers traditional publishing that's specific to her field and her genre. So very proud of her. It's been a huge success story, and she deserves every nod that she gets with that. So
Wow, that is great to be a part of that, Mary. Isn't that something? That would
yeah,
be
it's a great
amazing.
story.
Wow, that is a
Yeah.
great one. I'm glad you brought that one into the conversation here. So I'm sure there's listeners thinking, wow, I've been thinking about writing a book, um, they want to reach out to you. What's the best way that they can reach out to you?
Sure, they can reach me through my website, which is leadershipliterarylab.com. And there's a contact page. So if you punch or hit any of the buttons on any of the pages, I'll either get an email, or you can book a Calendly half an hour phone call from me, and it's absolutely free of charge. Either way, I'm happy to chat with people, even if the book project is a longer term project and they're just starting to think about, there's no pressure on my part. I'm just happy to help people bring their stories to the market, especially when they have a vision like Amy did, where it's something that can really help a lot of people. Those are my favorite projects.
And even if they're in the middle of something, then they just
Yep.
kind of are stuck.
Yep.
That's a great time to reach out to you to kind of get that free consultation so you can figure out how to move forward or not with them.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I do want to help advise your clients that might be interested in writing a book is that you really do need a mentor, whether it's me or somebody else. Don't go it alone. You really do need, especially in this market as competitive as it is, you really do need somebody to get eyes on. Your mom and dad or your coworker are not qualified in the way that a professional editor would be, and somebody who has experience in the publishing industry. So really invest the time to find out what that's all about.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what else do you have for our listeners today, Mary? What's something else you can give them that's just those key pieces that they should know before they start this process? I mean, you've thrown a lot at our way
Sure.
already,
No
but
problem.
let's get some key pieces, like 2 or 3 key pieces, so they can take that away from today.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So the number one thing I would say is you need to think about what you want to be known for. So what is it that you could talk about endlessly? Because once you become an author, you're going to establish yourself within that book, and you'll be talking about that book a lot. So make sure it's something you're really passionate about, you have a sustainable interest in. And so that's number one. Number two is do your homework. There are a lot of people out there that are offering book coaching and programs online. A lot of them, because I do my homework in the industry, are expedient courses that you can do very quickly. But I'm going to tell you that if you want to write a quality book, it is going to take you 6 to 12 months and generally closer to 9 to 12, especially if you're going to do the prep work. So as attractive as it is to say it's quick and easy, or even more attractive to use AI, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think there's anything personal about an AI version of you. And it's almost as if you're showing up and doing a meet and greet and you're showing an avatar of yourself. I think authenticity is really important right now. In fact, actually, Merriam-Webster, that was their year of their word of the year in 2023. People were searching up the word authenticity more than anything else that year, which speaks to how humans want to communicate with humans in an authentic way. And I think lastly, if you are inclined to write a book, take the leap and give me a call. I mean, this is my 2-second sales pitch, but I'd love to talk with you about what you're thinking because, there's a business proposition in it, of course, but I also really believe in supporting authors. I mean, one of the things about I am an author, being an author and being part of the publishing community and the writing community is that it is community based, and community is a big part of it. And so reach out, feel free to reach out. The dollars and cents don't matter at the beginning. We can chat about your vision. And if I'm somebody you want to choose to work with, great. And if not, I can point you to other resources if that's not the right fit. But community is a big part of it. And so take advantage.
Thank you so much, Mary. And I couldn't agree with you more on them, reaching out to you, because if they're starting, they don't have any coaching on anything. I mean, garbage in is garbage out, right? That's what's gonna happen. So
Yeah,
they need to get some guidance, so we're putting in solid content and solid content out. I,
exactly.
I can't thank you enough, Mary, for being on the show today and helping our listeners, learn about this whole process of writing and putting the pen to the paper or to the typeboard, however we decide to do it, right? But
Absolutely.
I thank you so much for being on the show. But with that being said, we're going to bring the Lost Coast podcast to a close. We want to thank Mary for being on the show today. We want to thank our listeners for listening to us today. And we will be signing off, and we will see you all next time. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Thank you.